What's the most ridiculous thing you've seen me do? Oh, God.
I'm gonna need a second to think about this. Also, what's appropriate and not appropriate? When we used to have locks on our fridge and cupboard door, and coming home to you trying to saw off the locks,
God.
and you using the wrong saw and having no idea how to do it, because obviously you didn't know anything about saws.
Yeah.
But that was like a big shock for me. Like, wow, like this is like living with an addict.
It's crazy to like look back on those times, and yeah, it very much is like a drug addiction. Like you are willing to do whatever it takes to like get that next fix. And for me, it was binging and purging.
How do you describe our relationship to others?
I usually describe you as like my best friend. I say that we're really close. We share all of the same values and we have a lot of similar interests, but we're opposite in many, many ways. You're logical. I'm very emotional and like guided by my gut. You don't really struggle with anything in terms of mental health. Like you're very easygoing, and I'm debilitated by a lot of things. Although I think I've become much more resilient.
Definitely.
Because I haven't had a choice living with chronic illness. Yeah, just our temperament is very different. You're shy, quiet, avoid confrontation. I will confront anybody. Like it doesn't faze me, and I'm very silly, very outgoing. When you think about us as kids, what do you remember? I feel like there's something.
I remember we were very playful, but also fought a bit as kids. Whatever I did, you did, and whatever you did, I did. So whether that was me playing with dolls because you did, or you playing with Thomas the Tank Engine trains because I did. But then as we got a little older, it felt like you were sort of focused on more by mom. And she would come home late, like past 7:30.
Because of my eating disorder?
No, not that age, even younger. Like she would just come home, you need help with homework, you need help with whatever. So I just kind of learned to be independent, I guess, from a really young age, and sort of just get by school and everything on my own.
I think how old were you when I first got sick? I think you were 5th grade.
4th, 5th grade, yeah.
Yeah.
So I was still youngish.
I always felt guilty about that you were sort of forced to grow up at such a young age and like go into this caretaker position for me. I think I feel bad because you still feel that responsibility like at home. Like I remember not that long ago, you told me that you feel like you're responsible for like keeping the family together, and that if like you were to set boundaries with dad, that he would like get a divorce from mom, or that everything would fall apart. And that made me so sad that you carried that weight and responsibility. For a lot of my childhood, I remember feeling like unloved, like you were the favorite. I would write mom like letters under her door and be like, why don't, like, I feel like you don't love me. Yeah, I always felt envious of you and really just like invisible. And I think my eating disorder sort of like brought us closer together because you were one of my biggest supports. But yeah, I think there was a lot of pain for me growing up because I felt like you were the favorite and I was the problem child.
That's interesting, because from my perspective, it felt like that as well in a way. Because like
that I was the favorite?
Because like your sports took precedence over mine, your homework needs took precedence. Like whatever you needed was always like more important than whatever I needed, because you were older and things were more significant in your life.
That's interesting. Yeah. I always viewed you as like everything came so easy to you. You were so good at school and you had all these friends, and like I was the one who was struggling with everything. But yeah, you're right. Like so much of it comes down to perspective. How are we most similar, and how does that scare you?
I think one way in which we're similar that you don't realize as much is that we both let anxieties control our lives, anxieties and fears. And for you, it's much more apparent because you have very visible anxiety that's like, I can't do it, what am I going to do? Whereas for me, it's much more like subtle, and I may not talk about it or say anything. But like, for example, the college submitting the test scores thing, that was like, when I realized that I had missed the deadline, inside I freaked out and I was super anxious, like, oh my God, what is mom going to say? What are you going to say? Am I going to not get into colleges? I just shouldn't say anything, and I just won't get into those schools. It's fine. And if she won't find out. But then when I told you, you told her anyway. And then she was mad at me for not asking her for help.
Right.
Not the fact that I messed up, but the fact that I didn't ask for help.
Yeah.
And I still live that way a lot of the times. Like my laziness with a lot of things where I put things off to the last minute, that's a lot of times because I'm scared of failing. And I'm scared of doing a bad job or messing up.
Right.
And that dictates a lot of the way that I live, even though it doesn't appear to be fear-based or anxiety-based. And it scares me a little bit because you struggle a lot with anxiety. Like, I can clearly see it is very debilitating for you, and it has been for your whole life. And so for me, it's something that I need to be better at because it controls too much of my life too.
In what other ways do you feel like it controls your life? Like, how else does it show up for you outside of academics?
I think in any aspect of my life where failing or messing up can be a big consequence, or making a big step, I could fumble and I guess lose a lot from that fumble.
Do you think that's part of why you withdrew from grad school?
Yeah, definitely a little bit, but it's also because I knew I was unhappy, and
Yeah.
I didn't need to continue being unhappy in the way I was
Yeah.
in this time. It's not necessary.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
That kills me. Because, like, my biggest thing is, like, I don't want to be a burden.
It's not a burden though. You're someone I love. I want to do it.
Yeah.
It's only a burden if I don't want to do it.
Yeah. I'm sorry that it affects you in that way, though. Do you feel like my depression getting like really severe in the past few months has like similarly impacted you like that,
Not
or you
at all.
think you're used to it?
I had to change so much when I was younger and become so much more mature, so much quicker.
Do you feel resentful that you had to sort of like give up those pieces?
It wasn't resentful towards you, it was just the circumstances. Everybody, whenever we had family meetings, being like, oh, how's Donnie? What's she up to? Is she okay? How was her eating disorder? And then for me, it was just like, wow, you're so tall, you grew a lot. And like, that was it. And so I felt like everybody cared about you, but they didn't really care about my life so much.
Right.
But I think also getting so much closer to you at such a young age, when you were going through a phase where you became a lot more, I guess I could use the term woke, you know, when you got into Tumblr and you got into social justice and all that, you put that on me because you were like, I'm not going to have a bigot brother. I'm not going to have a brother who's intolerant of people.
Yeah.
And that kind of made me mature in that way as well.
Yeah.
And respect people and have a lot more compassion.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just wondering, like, would you be the person that you are
Not at all.
if I hadn't gotten an eating disorder, if we hadn't gotten close?
Not at all.
I don't think I would be the person that I am today if
wouldn't
I hadn't gotten an eating disorder. I think, and I'm not sure that you would be as emotionally intelligent
Definitely
as you
not.
are. Yeah.
If this were to be our last conversation, what is something you never want me to forget?
If this were our last conversation, I think I would want you to never forget how much I love you, and how grateful I am for all the sacrifices that you've made when you were little and even now. I would never want you to forget that you've like literally saved my life like so many times. Even in like the last year when like my health has been so bad and I've like genuinely thought about killing myself. My relationship with you has always been like this really strong grounding force in my life, and you help me see the good when everything feels really dark, and you help me feel hopeful and believe that there's something better coming, and you help me stay curious about the future. And I would just want you to know how grateful I am, and that like I do recognize all of these things that you've done, and I appreciate them so much. And I've been trying to do better at like letting you know when you do things and like saying thank you, because I don't want you to forget.
Thank you.
What would you want me to know if this were our last conversation ever?
To not feel guilty about any sacrifices I've made, that I would do it all again and do even more if I could. That I wish your life could be different. I wish it could be better. It pains me every day to see you have to struggle through so much.
I wish that too. Like I wouldn't change the fact that I had an eating disorder, but I would change in a heartbeat having chronic illness. Yeah, I think like I often get stuck wondering what my life would look like. I mean, I'm still able to do a lot of things. I'm still in school, but like I can eat like 10 foods. My colon doesn't work. I can't go to the bathroom on my own. I feel like I want to crawl out of my skin every single day. I can't even touch things a lot of the time because of my mast cell disease. Like my life has become very, very small. Yeah, I wish it could be different too. Yeah, I wish it could be different, but I also know that like all the wishing in the world doesn't change things. And so a lot of my work has been like finding which ways am I not trapped? Like where do I still have freedom? Where do I still have choice? And like adding to my pile of good in my life. And you help me do that. Like you are such a big pile of good for me. And you help me feel like my life is worth living. So thank you. Why do you love me?
What's not to love?
Oh, silly.
Obviously, part of it is the way we grew up together, having gone through so much of the similar things, growing up with our parents, the way that they loved us, the way that they weren't able to love us. Going through your eating disorder together, obviously it's not the same for each of us because I didn't have it, but both of us having to be so emotionally open. I remember one time when we were literally just crying our eyes out next to each other, and you had snot all over your shirt, and I had it on mine, and we hugged each other. Knowing that I give you that kind of care and love, and I did all that for you, and knowing that you would do all of that and more in a heartbeat for me if I ever needed it. Knowing how much you care for other people, how much you prioritize other people whenever you can possible, whenever it doesn't put your own health at risk. Knowing how much of your life you've dedicated to helping strangers you've never met and will probably never meet ever again. You're just so selfless in all these ways that so many other people are not. It's really inspiring.
Thank you for that.